This is Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains Media production, your daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball, featuring interviews with special guests. Now here is your host, Mr. Steve Jones. Steve, how you doing today?
Doing great. Let's start with, do they know how to play this game?
Oh, boy.
I'm watching the last maybe 2.5, 3 innings of the Yankees-Mets last night. And
this can't be good.
no, I sat there and I'm wondering, who knows how to play this game? So they get to the 10th inning and they start with the designated, I refer to as the designated runner. I use the Charlie Finley, the old Oakland A's owner's terminology as to what he wanted to introduce. So the designated runner, the guy that made the last out of the 9th inning, is on second base. A guy that had been brought up. They're saying he was a middle-of-the-order hitter in AAA. And my first thought is, hey, look, you shut down the Yankees in the top of the 10th inning. You just need to get a run. Right? You'd like to maybe bunt the guy over. Now you can score him on a wild pitch, an error, tough play in the field, pass ball, right? There's sacrifice fly. There's all these ways you can score him from third base. Except they say that he can't bunt. He can't bunt. What do you mean he can't bunt?
Legally not allowed to, Steve.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, what is going on here? Now, I'm not asking, he wasn't in the lineup last night because he's on the IL, but I'm not asking Pete Alonso to bunt. Because Alonso, I want him to drive the run in. Now, he's not playing in the game. But for God's sake, you've got to be able to sit there and say, how can I help my team win? I mean, I don't know about you, but every time I took batting practice, what was the first thing I had to do? First thing I had to do was I had to lay down bunts. We were ordered to lay down bunts and then hit. Part of it's just, and I think it's smart because the idea of, okay, you know how to bunt, but at the same time, you want to see the bat hit the ball, Right. And then you start cutting away. He can't bunt. Then Nimmo comes to the plate, and Nimmo had already done the unthinkable and was thrown out at second base earlier in the game because he figured nobody saw him try to go to third, and he's like, oh, my goodness, I have to go back. It's like it was just an absolute bonehead playing the bases. Again, under the categories, anybody know how to play. And the runner's still on second. He hits a deep drive, to his credit, to right field. Okay? Now, the runner has got to go halfway. No. Okay? He goes 2 feet off the bag. Okay. All right. Ball goes over the head of the right fielder. Right? Right fielder puts his head down. It's over. Like, contraire, mon frere. Right? Now, to the credit of Gleyber Torres, he came over and he grabbed the ball and he threw it back in. It was actually a relatively close play at the plate. Does anybody, fielder doesn't know how to play the game? Runner doesn't know how to play the game. Guy can't bunt. I'm like, what am I watching here? This is Major League Baseball.
You also missed, I believe it was a right-handed pitcher letting a base runner steal home.
Oh, yeah.
That also happened in the middle of this.
IKF stole home, right-handed pitcher, staring right at him. Hey, didn't even look at him.
Took the entire wind-up, threw it home. Kenner Falefa scored. It was a wild pitch as well. But, either way, I love baseball. Baseball is a great sport. But sometimes you see stuff like you did last night with two teams that, truthfully, are not as good as they should be.
Well, I said this to somebody yesterday. In the last almost decade and a half, right? I had a guy say to me, he said, "Oh, the Mets, they're so overrated." That's what a guy said to me. And I could care less about who wins. All right. "Oh, the Mets are so overrated." I said, this guy's a big Yankee fan. I go, "Really?" I said, "You know the single most overrated franchise in the last 12 and a half years is?" I said,
Yankees.
"Yours." He goes, "No." I said, "Excuse me." I said, "You haven't even been to the World Series since 2009, and you've spent $2.5 billion on payroll." That's not an exaggeration, by the way. You spent about $2.5 billion on payroll. I said, "Texas has been to the World Series in that time twice. Kansas City's been twice. Okay, the Red Sox have been there twice. The Dodgers have been there 5 times. Houston's been there 5 times. The Nationals have been there. The Giants have been there and won 3 times. The Cardinals have been there." I said, "The Tampa Bay Rays have been there." I said, "And where are you?"
Yeah,
I said,
you're right.
I said, "It's like you calling the Dallas Cowboys the most overrated franchise when you're talking about your beloved Philadelphia Eagles."
Oof.
I said, "Well, guess what?" I said, "The Cowboys are." I said, "They can't, they're spending money. They make all these big moves, get all the publicity, yet they don't go anywhere. They tread water every year." I said, "Your team," I said, "they'll get to the playoffs. They tread water." I said, "Don't you start telling me about," okay, the Mets have been to the World Series since 2009. You haven't.
It hurts, but you're right.
Right? It's a fact. The most overrated franchise in Major League Baseball are the Yankees.
Yeah.
Right? They haven't even been there.
Paying a whole lot of money for a whole lot of nothing.
They're not going. I mean, over and over again, you think about, where they. You start listing all the teams that have been. They're not one of them.
When one thinks of the most overrated franchises in sports, you've got Yankees, Cowboys. I think it was a very fair one. For who in the NBA? Technically, I'd say the Celtics the past decade.
Celtics past decade.
But,
I mean, they've been to the finals once.
Yeah. So maybe I would have said the Lakers if not for the fact they won a championship.
They won a championship. So you can't, they get a lot of publicity, but they did win one.
Yeah. I would probably chuck in, I was going to say the Knicks, but I don't think as a Knicks fan, I don't rate us highly enough to even be considered overrated.
They're baffling.
Yeah. Maybe the Nets of the past decade.
I mean, it's been 50 years since they've won.
Who, the Nets?
No, the Knicks.
The Knicks, yeah.
The Nets have
never won. They were in early 2000s, 03, I think, was when they played the Spurs.
Right.
And they had all that hype in the early 2010s when they moved to Brooklyn with Prokhorov, and it was like, oh my gosh, the Nets are going to be the greatest team ever. They're getting Deron Williams, and they're getting Joe Johnson, and KG, and Paul Pierce, and all of these guys. And oh, look at that. Now we have Kevin Durant, and James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. Yeah. And what'd they get for it?
Nothing.
And
the Sixers fall into that category. Yeah. I mean, they haven't been to the second round. I mean, they haven't gotten out of the second round.
Been a while.
Since Iverson took them to the finals. And the Celtics have... it's interesting, when they were the underrated underdog team with Isaiah Thomas and those guys, okay, they got to the Eastern Conference final and Cleveland beat them, I think. Mm-hmm. All right. But now they've put together this, we've got Tatum,
super team.
We got Brown, we got, they drafted all these guys. And... still no.
And even when they got to the finals, they still felt overrated.
Right.
Which is crazy.
And it could be maybe even the Bruins.
Yeah. I mean, best record ever.
Right. But got to the final in 2019 and lost in 7 games on home ice.
To the Blues, who I believe that year weren't really the greatest team ever. They rebounded
Blues were
later.
In last place in January, had the worst record in the NHL, and won the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
They caught fire. And Pietrangelo, who was on that team, was just on the Vegas Golden Knights. But, what are you getting what kind of bang are you getting for your buck? I mean, when you go 12 and a half years, all right, because this year isn't done yet, and you've spent about $2.5 billion on payroll, right around that neighborhood, and you haven't even been to the World Series.
Not great.
I'm not saying have lost World Series. Like the Dodgers kept falling short, till finally, down in, Arlington, they beat the Rays. All right? So they finally broke through like the Lakers did and won in the bubble. And I'm not going to take anything away from anybody that won in the bubble. I mean, that would be wrong because you played and you won a championship. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you look at it over and over again and say, excuse me, you're paying this guy and this guy and this guy and this guy. You get a lot of publicity.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, the Phillies went to the World Series last year. They've been. Right? I mean, at least getting there.
If you were to give me a guess, I believe this is accurate. I could be wrong. Who do you think right now has the two of the highest paid players in the MLB? There are, I believe, 3 different teams on this list.
The Angels would have to be one of them.
They have Rendon and Trout.
Right.
Both, I believe they're 4 and 5 on this list.
Right, and let's face it, Ohtani is going to command.
He's going to be the highest paid in the MLB. Yeah. He should be.
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if he doesn't get there.
The Mets would be on that list.
Scherzer and Verlander are 1 and 2.
Yeah. And I have to get the third one here.
Mm-hmm.
Third one.
Don't overthink it.
Well, Aaron Judge.
Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole. So that is 1 and 2 for the Mets, 3 and 6 for the Yankees, 4 and 5 for the Angels. You know who's somehow not on here?
Dodgers.
They have one of the highest payrolls in the MLB, but they don't.
They spread it out among a number of people,
which is respectfully a really smart system.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind how much people get paid. It's not my money. If that's what you elect to do, that's what you elect to do. I don't mind. Yeah, I don't sit there and go, oh, boy, is he getting overpaid? I'm like, hey, whatever. Yeah, I remember when Ryan Howard was with the Phillies. And he'd signed that huge contract. Then, of course, luck enters into it. He blew out his Achilles running down the first to end the Cardinals series. He then hurt his knee. So he's so overpaid. Says, and I said this. I was talking to a group, and this came up, and I said, "Excuse me." I said, "How do you think he got his money?" I said, "Do you think he held Dave Montgomery and all the Phillies executives in a room and released them one by one until they got the money, or did somebody say?" How about this number? I like it. I said both sides agreed to give him the money.
There's always a reason a player gets paid. They always get paid for a reason. There's not many players that ever are quote unquote overpaid. Overpaid only happens at some point later in the contract where you paid someone too much. You paid them at a premium when they were at their peak, and their peak, or they fell off quickly after that.
Well, it goes back to the quote I had from Bill Walsh. Was it last week we were talking about this? Well, it's because Jason was here. So it was Bill Walsh. Just by mentioning his name, he suddenly became engaged mentally in the show.
Ouch.
Whoa. I'm kidding. Okay. And I said, the conversation you had with Randy Cross. You got 5 more years left in the league, but only 2 really good ones. I only want the 2 really good ones.
And this is a part of a point I was thinking about with these MLB contracts, and now it's carrying over to other sports where you're seeing soccer giving out 8-year contracts and stuff, and hockey does it too. How do you feel about a contract extending beyond like the 5-year period? Because normally the big contracts you see in like the NBA, 5 years. But now you're seeing guys get 10 years and 12 years for crazy money. When Judge ends his deal, he'll be like 77.
I know. All right, so we have to do this idealistically and realistically. So idealistically, I would never give a position player more than 5 years. I would never give a pitcher more than 3 years, idealistically. realistically to compete, I'd have to amend that because I have to compete. But I really just feel like 5 years it's been proven over and over again. Do you think Trey Turner and Xander Bogaerts are going to be sitting there and judge 5 years from now? Not the end of their contract, 5 years from now. I mean, Judge is 31 now. Okay? He's 31 years old. People think he's some sort of, real young guy. Well, he's not a real young guy, okay? And I can't, to me, there's too many examples. Robinson Cano.
Terrible contract.
Okay? Albert Pujols, Hall of Famer, but that's not a good deal. Okay? Now, you can't help that he gets hurt. That happens. Under that category, 8 years, Dustin Pedroia. Okay? Here's a guy, when he signed the contract, never missed any games. Then he got the Manny Machado incident at second base, and suddenly, no more.
Would like to throw Alex Rodriguez in there. 10 years, $275 with the Yankees, and he retired before the contract ended.
I know.
The Yankees fan who loved A-Rod when he was a Yankee.
Yep.
Retired before the contract ended.
I know.
It's comical. It doesn't make sense. Paying someone that much money.
Who is the sixth highest paid Cincinnati Red right now?
Sixth? It's not Votto. Votto's probably one.
Who is the sixth highest paid Cincinnati Red on the payroll right now?
Is it like Johnny Cueto somehow?
Ken Griffey Jr.
Huh?
He's still on the payroll. His contract was so long with deferred money, he's the sixth highest paid Cincinnati Red.
Wow. I mean, you look at Bobby Bonilla Day. Everyone's favorite day.
July 1.
July 1, baby. We're almost at Bobby Bonilla Day. We're gonna celebrate it on that day.
1.1 million.
I believe Bobby Bonilla Day is a Saturday this year, so we'll celebrate it on the Friday.
On the Friday. Oh yeah, we'll have a good time with it.
But
and that goes through 2032, I think.
Yeah. He is getting paid like $1 million every year just to be Bobby Bonilla.
Who comes up with this stuff?
And that's why I look at just so many of these deals don't make sense. And then you also see in these contracts, like MLB is the one league where you really see it, where players have opt-outs after like 2 years, 6 years, and 9 years, but then extensions that they can put on it at like 5 and 7. And it's like, well, there's so many things here. This sounds really stupid for me to say out loud, but back in the day, you'd get paid 5 years for X amount, and in the NBA, you might have an opt-out after the second to last year. Like the penultimate year, then an opt-out, or a team option where that final year is.
Well, nobody's played it better than LeBron has.
Yeah, he does the one-on-ones.
LeBron has played it beautifully where he has the opt-outs there all the time. His last contract doesn't have it because I think it was a 3-year deal.
His last one did have it. He signed a 1-on-1, extended it after the first season to make it a 2-on-1.
Okay. Yeah.
But he has done 1 year plus 1 year, and he's just renewed.
And keeps getting the max. He keeps getting the max all the time. I mean, he has negotiated it brilliantly. I don't know who his agent is.
His agent is LeBron himself, James. I don't know.
Yeah,
He's CAA or someone.
Yeah.
Clutch. I think he's Rich Paul. It's Rich Paul.
Rich Paul. Well, it's brilliant. Okay, he's getting the max every single time. And in a relative sense, he's worth the max as to what the NBA gives. He's the face of the league. Even when they don't win, he's the face of the league. But when I'm sitting there, I remember when Trey Turner's contract came down. What was it, 11 years?
Something like that.
I'm looking at it like, Trey Turner.
Tatis just got his 14-year deal.
He got a 14-year deal. Brian Hayes got an 8-year deal.
But that at least felt shorter, which is crazy to say that 8 years feels like nothing. But
Well,
you've got these 12-year deals coming out the woodwork every other day.
I'm okay with arbitration deals. And Brian Hayes was an arbitration deal because the first, 4 years of the contract, you're essentially avoiding arbitration with him. And arbitration brings with it very hard feelings. Okay? You go in, I hit 300. They go in and say, 7 out of 10 times he made an out. Like, really? I mean, like Dylan Betances. I mean, he went through arbitration with the Yankees. He was bitter. I had a trainer who had been the trainer in the majors with both the A's and the Cardinals, and he'd come in for the Spikes for a week or whatever, and he and I were just talking. He said, "Steve, arbitration is the worst thing that ever happened to our league. It's the worst thing that ever happened."
Because there's manipulation of days. There's like, oh, he was 2 hours away from getting this full contract, but now he's going to get like $25,000.
Right. And this was the trainer. This was not, he just knows being around the clubhouse or guys coming into the training room what they talk about. He says, this is the worst thing. It causes such hard feelings. And then I see Xander Bogaerts. Xander Bogaerts is a really good player. He's a championship player. He was, he played third base, started at third base in 2013. They won it. Started at shortstop when they won it in 2018. Okay. And he's been a winning player. But 11 years?
Rafael Devers.
Right?
11 years.
11 years.
Giancarlo Stanton, when he was with the Marlins, 13.
13 years. And the Yankees just absorbed the contract. They just picked it up. The Marlins were like, really? I'll tell you. Can I tell you a story about the Padres?
I would love to hear the Padres stories.
This is long ago. Okay.
You know what? The Padres always have a fun history.
They had Jake Peavy.
Oh, what a man.
They had Jake Peavy, who was their highest paid player at the time.
Great starting pitcher.
So they're sitting in the owner's room, and I got this from one of the guys who was in the room. Okay. And they're running the owners' meeting, and then they get to the general manager. And they said, look, you got to move Peavy. You got to move him. God, we got to get him off the payroll. Okay. Well, then they have another meeting about, 3-4 weeks later. And they get to the GM, and he says, got some news for you. We moved Peavy to the White Sox. He goes, oh, that's so good. He says, oh, Gary, everything started high-five. He's off the payroll. That's right. And finally things settled down. The GM looks at him and says, well, don't you know who we got for him? And he looks over, literally says, they gave us players?
I believe the stat year Peavy was making $11 million. He ended up at his peak with the White Sox making 17.
Yeah. They gave us players? Yes, that's called a trade.
But that's
a true story.
I mean, look at the Russell Westbrook trade for Chris Paul. Neither of them wanted those contracts.
I know.
But they swapped like a first-round pick in there because they were like, we got to throw something at somebody.
Well, the NBA is filled with contracts which are just baffling.
But at least the NBA, it's you get off the books with them soon enough. That usually NBA contracts don't go sour up until like the third year of a 5-year deal.
There's a lot of guys in that league. You sit back and go, is that going to how much?
Yeah. But at least the MLB, you can get your NBA, you can get out of them early.
Well,
you can't get out in the MLB.
Major League Baseball, it's all guaranteed money.
Yeah.
I mean, Trey Turner, okay, could announce his retirement tomorrow. He's going to get the money.
It's all sitting in escrow, waiting to get sent to everybody.
I mean, you sit there. Hey, Harper got 13 years.
Crazy.
Okay. Now, if you look at it, the last 3 years of the contract, his number goes down.
A lot of teams will front load these numbers or back load them.
Right.
The smart teams front load them.
But 13 years.
Where is he going to be in 13 years? In a wheelchair?
I don't know.
But that's my point, is these contracts are getting handed out, and they still do.
Well, but
It's
the NFL,
like, what's happening?
Okay, Watson has a guaranteed contract. He's the only one.
Yeah.
The NFL's incredible. He signed a 7-year, $96 million deal. Yeah, but you have to make the team the last 4 years of it.
And they usually guarantee like the first 52 million's guaranteed. After that, it's not. And it's like that's the NBA, the NFL, their owners like ecstatic. The only ones who haven't been ecstatic are Jimmy Haslam because he paid Deshaun Watson a lot of money guaranteed.
That's the only fully guaranteed. I thought Kirk Cousins, was pretty.
Kirk was close, but he was like
quite.
3 years, 90, but like 70 was guaranteed. And then obviously Lamar tried to fight for a fully guaranteed deal and didn't get it.
Right.
But he got a good chunk of it guaranteed. But even so, these MLB deals, it's like constantly you're seeing these guys like a Julio Rodriguez. Julio, great player, amazing guy.
Yeah.
Immediately like a 10, 11-year deal. Tatis had a great half season with the Padres, came back, had one good year, bam, 14. It's like, what are we doing? Now in soccer, Todd Bowley bought Chelsea, spent over $500 million, and then gave out 8-year contracts to players that are 26. They're going to be 34 when it runs out, and some of those guys aren't going to be playing anymore. And
how much money is Messi going to get from Miami?
Well, his deal is going to be a lot of money, but he's about to get...
He also gets part ownership.
He gets part ownership of the team and part of the revenue deal with Apple TV, which might be the entire MLS had to sign off on that. Think about that for a minute.
Supposedly, his first match, I don't know when his first match is.
No one, it's not been confirmed yet.
Right. But supposedly tickets are going for $20,000.
The day prior to Messi signing the deal, Inter Miami took all their ticket sale website stuff down because they understood that it was going to be crazy. Then the day later, they put it back up about 50% higher prices. They then sold out of everything within about 15 minutes of him signing. And by the way, they've now gone up 8 million followers on Instagram since he signed. They were at 1 million. They're now at like 9. So, but regardless, these deals in soccer, in the NBA, even the NFL, they're short term. You get out of them within 5 years. So it doesn't mean your full decade and a half is stocked in one player because you overpaid the guy.
I see this stuff. You're telling me, we were talking about Bradley Beal yesterday. I remember when he signed. I looked around at it. Really? Okay. My first thought was, what a waste of money. In terms of, I'm not saying, what's Beal get per year? $30 million?
Beal currently, I think, he's super maxed. He's getting 5 years, 251. He's getting $52 million a year currently.
Okay. You want to know how much I think he should get paid per year?
20.
7 to 10. Okay. It doesn't mean I don't think he's a talented player, but he's not a winning player. Right? Not a winning player. I've watched the playoffs. I haven't seen him do a lot of winning.
You're not wrong.
Okay. Zion Williamson. His contract comes up. I'm not giving him a dime. You got to show up for work. You got to punch in. Okay? I hurt my hamstring on January 2nd. He didn't play the rest of the year.
Do you want to know who the 16th through 20th highest paid NBA players in the league are currently?
16 through 20, go ahead.
16 is Zach LaVine at $43 million. Trae Young at $43 million.
LaVine was nice to the Penn State players when they...
He's like a great dude.
When Penn State beat Northwestern, the Bulls plane had just landed and Penn State was getting on the airplane. And LaVine and DeRozan, the players all had to get their pictures with LaVine and DeRozan, especially DeRozan.
Oh, yeah. DeRozan's amazing.
Right. So, it was a big deal. So I'm standing on the tarmac going, okay, great.
Great guy, but currently Zach LaVine and Trae Young are earning the same amount of money that Luka Doncic is.
Okay.
And then 18th, Rudy Gobert, $41 million a year. And then 19th and 20th are two of the rookie extensions, and it's real funky to look at now because those two, one player you mentioned just now, Zion Williamson, the other one, Ja Morant. Zion's deal is a little bit different because he's getting half guaranteed, half is based on him playing. So that was a logical deal from the Pelicans to say, okay, this is the full deal you should get, We're giving you half of it guaranteed. You get the other half guaranteed if you hit the first 3 seasons. I think he plays it enough of the games. So, logical.
I don't mind how much anybody makes, but we're just talking about this from a logical point of view. And from a logical point of view, why am I paying a shortstop, so 2 shortstops, so we'll take Bogarts and we'll take Turner. Why am I paying 2 guys that I don't think are among the top 5 shortstops in baseball? Now, probably more in the 5 to 10 range. And one fielding-wise, Turner, probably is in the 15 to 20 range.
Mm-hmm.
And giving them that kind of deal and that kind of money, it makes there's I know you're trying to compete. I got it. I also know that the year after you sign a collective bargaining agreement, everybody goes nuts.
Mm-hmm.
We got money. Hey.
Well, that was what the NBA. I think it was
TV deal. Wait till the TV deal comes out.
Well, that was what I forget what year it was, but you got these guys getting like $20 million contracts with like Bismack Biyombo, and no disrespect to Biyombo, he was not worth $20 million.
No.
These guys were getting 3-year, $72 million deals. Chandler Parsons, nothing, didn't do anything. He didn't play.
Chandler Parsons, when he played against Penn State, didn't do anything. I did an NIT game down at O'Connell.
And he has since discussed.
You're like,
whatever. Timofey Mozgov, I believe, was 3 years, $72 million, which currently would be about the same thing, I think, that like Anthony Simons or Draymond Green make. Yeah. It's like, what?
Wait till they sign the new TV deal. Okay, the new TV deal, the NBA says we'd like to triple our money. Now, they're not going to triple their money.
Yeah, close.
Right? But they're not going to because, look, anytime you go through something like this, you always put out a top out, it's a negotiating salvo.
At best, we triple.
Right. Yeah. We think we should triple our money. Network. We don't think you should. But we think you deserve more.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Meet in the middle.
Right. So instead of tripling for them would be $7.8 billion a year.
A lot of money.
Okay. $7.8 billion. My guess is when it's done, they'll get between 5.5 and 6.5. It's pretty good coin.
Mm-hmm. It ain't half bad.
Okay, pretty good coin. So let's be really liberal. 5 to 6.5, somewhere in there. 5 to 6.5.
Let's say 6. We'll flat out at 6.
Let's go 6 because you know what? 5 is less than double.
Mm-hmm.
So that wouldn't be right. So I said 5.5 to 6.5. We'll say 6. They get $6 billion. Okay. As soon as that contract is signed, the money is going to be flowing left and right.
But the crazy thing is
and
now,
not only that, they're going to get 2 expansion teams out of it, and they're going to get $5 billion from that, between $2.5 billion here, $2.5 billion there, just in franchise fees.
And then each of those franchises are going to start paying their players, and then those contracts are going to end up being crazy. The tied for second highest paid player in the NBA is. There's 3 players that are 1, 2, and 3. One is Damian Lillard, but that's a bit of a special case because he's monetarily probably not worth it, but he's the star. That's a slightly different case. Number 2 is Devin Booker, but he's tied with this man. Who do you think is the 3rd highest paid player?
Carmelo Anthony.
No. This player, I don't believe, has been beyond. I don't know if he's ever been to the second round of the NBA playoffs.
Second round.
Would you like his age?
No. Let's see. Second round of the NBA playoffs.
I don't think he's ever been that far. If he has, he was knocked out in the second round.
Harden's out.
It is not James Harden.
No. Let's see. Who would that be? It'd be a good one. Let's see. Gobert's getting 41. Donovan Mitchell.
It is not Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell is somewhere near, I believe, the 30-ish player range. He's the 35th highest paid player. Number 5 on this list is Steph Curry. 4 is Nikola Jokic, whose contract kicks in this year.
Yep.
2 is Booker. 1 is Lillard. Number 3, center for the Minnesota Timberwolves, Karl Anthony Towns, $56 million a year, and has never been, I don't believe,
No.
to the second round, or if he has not been beyond it.
He hasn't been beyond the second round because the T-Wolves did win a round.
They won, last year.
Last year.
Last year they won. They lost. They got smoked then by, I believe it was the, no, they lost to the Grizzlies in the first round.
Did they really?
They haven't, I don't believe they've been beyond, they haven't been close to the
promised land.
Promised land. Not even close. Right. And he's the third highest paid.
They're not even up to the exit for it.
Yeah.
And plus they got the Edwards kid.
Anthony Edwards is about to get bigger contract than him.
He's about to get a huge contract. And he's a good player. I mean,
he's a great player, but he's going to probably get paid the max, and that max is going to be even higher than what Cat's earning. And that's crazy. Like, these numbers are just going up and up and up, but at least in the NBA, you can get off of them.
So, well,
you can unload.
Let me give you an example of good judgment on a contract and an organization that understood somebody that knows how to play and is a winning player. And that's on your team.
My team? Can I guess the name?
Yeah.
Would it be a former Villanova Wildcat?
Yeah.
Would it be, I'm guessing not Josh Hart.
No, it's not Josh.
I'm going to guess Jalen Brunson.
Jalen Brunson. Brunson is a winning player who makes everybody else around him better, has made his game better, and is the kind of player I enjoy watching play because I think he's gutsy and I think he cares intensely about winning.
Do you know how many Jalen Brunsons it takes to get to Karl Anthony Towns' contract?
Probably 3.
2.5. It takes almost 3 total Jalen Brunsons to get to the same number Karl Anthony Towns is at.
But it was a great acquisition by them. Right? That's the kind of guy that, to me, you do pay.
He wanted to sign a 4-year, $52 million deal with the Mavs, and they said no. And then he just signed a 4-year, $104.
Right. Instead, they're going to pay Kyrie Irving
$60 million a year. He's going to want the max.
Irving is an ultra-talented player, and I know he won with the Cavaliers, but he's not a winning player. At this stage of his career, he's not a winning player.
He's an uber-talented guy, great ball handler, one of the best, if not the best ball handler ever.
I mean,
not a winner.
And I know with Cleveland they won, so I give him credit. He's got a ring. And I know Mike Krzyzewski would absolutely disagree with me because Krzyzewski played the 1 year at Duke, and Krzyzewski loved him. He did. And he told Irving, someday you're going to win an Olympic gold medal, and in 2016 he did when they were down in Brazil and Mike was coaching the team. I think it was Mike's last go-around coaching with USA Basketball. So he would sit here and would vehemently tell me I'm wrong. Right? Yet I know enough people around the Celtics. I know enough people around them in that organization that felt when he was still there that he was a cancer.
You should ask Brooklyn how they feel.
And was a bad influence on the young players, and that they got better after they traded him.
I would love to hear what Brooklyn feels about this. I mean, I know after the trade happened, I believe Sean Marks.
Brooklyn. I did the holiday tournament. And this is when they played
at the Barclays.
At the Barclays. And so I was around a few of the Nets people because Penn State used the practice gym in the back. Anybody who thinks like the NBA practice gyms are some palaces, no, they're just a practice gym. Okay, don't get all carried away. And they had Durant and him, and Durant wasn't playing at the time. Durant was hurt. And they weren't sure it was going to work. Now, they made the playoffs this year and played the Sixers, and the only reason they did was they accumulated enough wins with Durant and Irving before they. Okay? But if I have a choice between Brunson, and I would have said this 2 years ago, it's not just exclusive to now. You give me a choice between Brunson and Ben Simmons. I would have told you 3 years ago, even 3 years ago, I'd have told you Brunson. Oh, no, Simmons the first overall draft. I never liked his game at LSU. I didn't like his game in the NBA. And every time I look at Brunson, when he was at Dallas, he's out there grinding his guts out, trying to figure out a way to win the game and making his game better in the process. Brunson became a better shooter over time because you could tell he put the work in the offseason when nobody was watching. Mm-hmm. I watched Ben Simmons, and I have doubts. You'd have to prove to me he worked on his game in the offseason.
But Steve, all those offseason videos, him shooting 3-pointers. I mean, he does it. He shoots 3-pointers. Why would you not trust those videos? Do you not trust the summer runs at all?
You can put out 3 videos a summer if you want. And those are the 3 days you went out and shot.
I forget who it was. I believe someone went on JJ Redick's podcast and was talking about how they had to record their workouts for this summer and like send back progress to a team. What they did is they, in one day, recorded 3 different videos of them with different shirts on and just used that.
Yeah.
Which I think is hilarious.
Yeah.
I believe Gronkowski has done the same thing as well. Rob, when he was the Patriots, sent 3 videos to the Patriots like, hey, yeah, I'm working out. I'm definitely not gaining weight.
But Gronkowski, when it came time to play,
was there.
He played great with the Patriots when he played. He wasn't always out there. He'd get injuries, maybe because he wasn't doing all that stuff in the offseason. Mm-hmm. And when he played for the Bucs, same thing. He made winning plays for them when he played. Simmons is somebody where he's always been a really good defender. So, I mean, let's be fair here about what he does. He's always been a really good defender. He's always been a terrific passer. He has always been a bastion of mediocrity as a shooter. Okay? How much more fair do you want me to be about it? Okay? Yeah. And in the big moment, he doesn't want to be involved in the big moment. He kept proving over and over again he didn't want to be involved in the big moment against Atlanta. Didn't want to be involved in the big moment against Toronto. Didn't want to, anything. Just didn't. Like, okay. Meanwhile, I got this guy making exponentially less money. I'd take that guy. If you put him on the Philadelphia 76ers, you want to know how much better they'd be just like that? Just by getting him? He'd make Maxey better in a heartbeat. He'd make Tobias Brown better in a heartbeat. He'd make Embiid better in a heartbeat.
It's wild seeing some contracts in some leagues.
But that's a guy who knows how to play. And this goes back to the point I made yesterday. And I opened the show by talking about a sequence of plays in baseball in the Mets-Yankees game where I'm looking around saying, does anybody out here know how to play the game? Now, I'm looking around. There's certain guys that obviously you can look at, right away. You can say, hey, guys that know how to play the game. You're watching. Do I think Lindor knows how to play? Yeah. Do I think Rizzo knows how to play? Oh, my goodness, yes. Right? These guys all know how to play. Aaron Judge, okay? Aaron Judge knows how to play. Okay? He's a star who plays hard and knows how to play, knows what base he's supposed to throw to. Oh, Marte. He had to throw to third, right? And fortunately for him, Verlander backed it up because he sailed this thing. You want to know my Marte story?
Let me hear your Marte story.
He did a rehab with the Spikes, right? Now, when a major league player comes in, okay, to do a rehab, okay, they peel out the bills and they bring in the best spread of the season and they pay for it. It is a tradition. It is somebody that the major league players understand they're supposed to do. When Zach Duke came in, he did that. There have been some rehabs that have come through here, okay? Marte didn't lay out a dime.
Boo.
Didn't lay out a dime.
Tisk, tisk.
Tisk, tisk. Oh, well. He didn't get a hit in the game either. Mm-hmm. He went 0 for 4.
Good. I have a question for you. We've got some
Do
trivia.
I have any answers?
Some more trivia stuff.
Yeah.
Out of Josh Hart, Contavious Caldwell Pope, Evan Fournier, Tim Hardaway Jr., Anthony Simons, who would you guess is paid the most, and who would you guess is paid the least?
Fournier most and Simons least.
Simons is the most.
Well, Simons the most.
Simons is the most, and the least is Josh Hart.
Okay.
Simons is paid double what Josh Hart gets. They were both on the same team last year.
Where's Fournier?
Fournier is second highest, I believe. Or no, he's third. He's behind Tim Hardaway. So Fournier is paid $18 million to sit on the bench and never play a minute. Anthony Simons is paid $25 million a year.
Hardaway with Orlando now. Where is he?
Hardaway is with the Mavericks still.
Mavericks, okay.
He's a free agent in 2025. After, by the way, he was a New York Knick, which was just one of the most luscious teams I've ever seen play. We had Alonzo Trier doing well for us.
Do you know what it's like for me doing games knowing a guy's going to be a one and done? And you sit back and you say, I don't see it. I don't see. I mean, there's certain guys like you can see right away. Okay, D'Angelo Russell, I knew he was going to be a one and done, and you could see a little different caliber game. Okay, did I think he was the greatest player going? No, but you could see a little different game. Hardaway, I liked, but I thought he'd be a middle of the road journeyman type of NBA player. And then there's certain guys that come through and you say, he's one and done. Right? And then, I mean, there was who was it? The University of Minnesota. He was one and done. He was married to Kim Kardashian briefly.
Chris Humphries?
Chris Humphries. Okay. I think there was a lottery. This isn't true. So I'm being facetious here, but there was a lottery as to who would drive him to the airport. They couldn't wait to get rid of him. He was, right? He was the black hole. The ball would come in, it would never come back out. He made nobody around him better. And Penn State won both games against him. Well, it was easy to win both games against him because the other four guys were like going, okay, great. All right, got to pass it into him. All right, I guess we're done here. We've done our job. Good. All right. And you knew he'd go to the NBA, and you also knew that in the NBA he was
Yeah, sounds about right.
I see a lot of right? Some guys you look at and go, whoa. Right? I see a lot of guys that go one and done, and they're like, okay.
See a lot of Von Wafers and those type of guys calling out names that I remember back in the day thinking, what are you doing? You know what still haunts me, and I still think about to this day? Anthony Bennett. I still
the first
think about
overall
him.
pick for the Cavaliers. To this day, I don't understand why they drafted him.
I remember that draft. There wasn't any talent there. There was no one at the top of the draft, and they said, you.
Oh, who was the guy out of Loyola, Chicago?
The recent team?
No. He was the first overall pick in the draft. I think it was in the 70s. He was the first overall pick in the draft. He sat back and went, what are you watching here? I mean, I remember when the Portland Trailblazers were desperate for a big man. They were desperate we got to get a big man. Got to get a big man. So Houston drafted Olajuwon first.
LaRue Martin.
Oh, you're stepping away. LaRue Martin. Like, what? But they drafted Olajuwon first. We got to get a big guy. They drafted Sam Bowie. And bypassed Michael Jordan.
Yep.
Eventually, they got their big man. You know who it was? Arvydas Sabonis. Now,
Not a bad guy.
Now, Sabonis' kid,
Demonis.
who plays for Sacramento, out of Gonzaga, you knew he could play. Again, guys that can play. that know how to play. I thought Jamal Murray was going to be a terrific player.
Mm-hmm.
Right? No, I knew nothing about Jokic when they drafted him. Nothing. Right?
I don't think you're alone.
No, I knew nothing. And then he started playing. You're like, going, this guy can pass and play. Doncic, this guy can pass and play. I was never sold on Porzingis.
Porzingis has to be a chat for another day, because I, as a Knicks fan who loved Porzingis when he played for us, I have a Porzingis jersey in my house currently.
Which is fine.
I did not buy it with my own money. I won it from a Six Flags game, shooting 3-pointers. But at some point, we'll have the Porzingis chat. But by the way, I want to shout out this 2013 NBA draft, because it still might be one of the wildest things to look at ever. Because obviously you've got Giannis at 15, which was a great pick, just outside the lottery.
Right.
But
and again,
and we discussed this yesterday.
He's out of Greece.
Yeah. And also, you can never fully predict how someone's going to do in the NBA. But just looking back on this one, number 1, Anthony Bennett at UNLV, I think.
UNLV.
Number 2 was Victor Oladipo, who was a great player.
Now Oladipo, when he was at Indiana,
amazing.
I really liked him, and I thought he would have a long-term existence in the NBA.
And his injuries.
And he made himself in college
a great player.
Into a better player. He was not a one and done. He made himself into a better player. Where, like, at the end, you're like, you know what, this guy, you know, he's kind of earned his spot. Go ahead.
Then 3, we'll rush through this. Otto Porter Jr. 4.
Otto Porter Jr., I saw him play, believe it or not, against Florida Gulf Coast.
FGCU versus Georgetown, baby.
That was his last game in college, and I was there.
And then Cody Zeller.
And you know what he didn't have? Otto Porter Jr. never played at AAU, ever. Never played at AAU. His father didn't believe in it.
Well, there we go. And then Cody Zeller out of Indiana. Again, another player.
Didn't like him.
Alex Len from Maryland.
Didn't like him.
Nerlens Noel out of Kentucky.
Didn't like him.
Ben McLemore out of Kansas.
Didn't like him.
KCP out of Georgia.
Okay. All right.
Trey Burke from Michigan.
I liked him.
Everyone we loved. Trey Burke was amazing.
Trey Burke committed to here. He committed to Penn State verbally, and then changed out and then signed with Michigan. But I liked him as a player. I thought he'd have a good NBA career. I was wrong about that.
And then last but certainly not least, and probably the best player out of this first 10, CJ McCollum, number 10 out of Lehigh.
McCollum played against Penn State. Loved him.
He was.
I thought this guy can play. He can shoot. Penn State won the game.
That Duke game.
But you could tell CJ McCollum was a cut above. I thought, you know what, I thought he'll get a shot in the NBA. He can play. He can shoot.
And then Brandon Roy got hurt. He became the starting shooting guard, and history is history.
Right. And then a couple guys got hurt, and the point guard ended up being some guy named Tim Frazier. True. Oh, Lillard loved Frazier. He did. Lillard loved Frazier. So did McCollum.
Craziness.
That's this show.
Yeah.
You can wrap it up.
And now I can wrap it up. Thank you. Thanks for tuning into Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a Seven Mountains Media production. Check back daily for all the latest sports news and analysis with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball, Mr. Steve.